All right, I am in Elkhorn, Wisconsin. This is the area which is said to house the legendary Bray Road beast, which is a kind of Wisconsin werewolf, similar to the Dogman of Michigan. A separate episode coming up soon, I think. But today's episode of Monsterology is dedicated to the Bray Road beast of Elkhorn, Wisconsin. All right, here's the first drawing that we're going to work on. This is charcoal and acrylic drawing as I've envisioned the Bray Road beast. And then I did this ink sketch of another kind of dog-headed creature, which is basically the Kynocephalus, an ancient monster that was believed in by the Greeks and the Romans and all the way up into the Renaissance. Here I'm just sharpening up the charcoal to get ready for this drawing. It's always kind of a satisfying little meditation to do to get ready to draw. And you'll see me lay in sort of the line work first, and then I come back and establish values with a blending stump and some charcoal dust, and then also get into it with a little bit of acrylic black paint near the end. So basically, I want to tell you the story of the Bray Road beast, and it's kind of an interesting case because I have visited this area many times in south Wisconsin. It's near a very popular sort of touristy area, Lake Geneva, and I've even played some gigs in Delavan, Wisconsin, which is nearby there. But I had never really heard of the Bray Road beast until recently. And I refer you to a couple of sources here that I used to gather some of my research. And one is an interesting short little piece by a journalist named Archer Parquette for the Milwaukee Magazine. And the other is a book called The Bray Road Beast by Linda Godfrey. Both interesting researched sources. This story sort of got hot in the 80s and 90s, but it goes back to the 1930s. Apparently there was a custodian who worked the night shift at a school for exceptional children, and he was basically on his rounds, a watchman named Mark Shackleman, and he used to walk the grounds, every night, and it was basically a series of older buildings and an orchard and then some open fields. And near these open fields there were several old Native American burial mounds. The year was 1936, and Shackleman was working this job and basically just collecting his paycheck. And he goes out and he's crossing the field and he sees a shadow. And sort of peering out, he sees it's a kind of hunched form, and it seems to be a quadruped of some kind, and it's digging into the mounds, and it looks like a canine, like maybe a wolf or a dog. I mean, it would be weird to have a wolf in this area of Wisconsin, but it's not impossible. And then he realizes, oh no, it's really quite large. It's huge, in fact. And it suddenly sort of senses him and stands up, looks at him, and then he can see that it's actually around 7 feet tall and actually bipedal, and it basically growls and then runs off. And so he's freaking out, of course, and he actually has this experience one more time on another night. And then never again. So he claims to have been able to see quite clearly that it was humanoid, but also had sort of the head of a wolf, and that it ran on two legs and was much larger than a man. Then in 1999, an 18-year-old girl was driving down Bray Road, and this is near Delavan, and she claims that she hit something with her right tire, and she stopped the car and got out to see what it was. And at that point, she saw this gigantic wolf form standing on two legs off to the side of the road. And she raced back to her car, and as she pulled away, the thing actually attacked her car. Then she reported this in the late 90s, and it sort of prompted a fresh wave of reports, and people came forward saying, I'd seen this thing too. And then there was a kind of reporter that was tasked with investigating this by a Walworth County weekly paper called The Week. And this turned out to be Linda Godfrey. And she interviewed many people who claimed to have seen the Bray Road beast. And Godfrey sort of starts as a skeptic, and maybe she sort of ends as a skeptic. But she is convinced after interviewing many people that they are sincerely seeing something that they can't explain. In other words, to her mind anyway, she felt that it was not a hoax and it was not just the imagination. There seemed to be something at the core of it. And we've seen this many times in Monsterology, that monstrous lore builds up around a kind of kernel of truth or some kind of biological creature that's hard to identify, and that then gets a whole series of extrapolations and exaggerations built up around it. So it could be that. It could also be the werewolf of Bray Road. So the sightings of this beast kind of slowed down in the 2000s, and you don't hear much about it anymore. But it is really a kind of fun creature that shows you that the werewolf trope and legend takes on a local color and variety wherever it crops up. Having spent a lot of time in rural parts of Wisconsin, in the south, in the sort of driftless region near the Mississippi, up in central Wisconsin, and all the way up in the north, I can vouch for the creepiness and the desolation of the woods at night. It is it can be a very frightening place if you're just sort of making your way down some dark road. You can see all kinds of stuff, sort of animals leaping out, deer, for example, dogs, cats, raccoons, and one's always sort of wary driving down these roads at night, because you don't want to hit a deer. Not only can it kill the deer or wound the animal, it can basically destroy your car, and many people have actually died hitting something as innocent as a deer. So driving around in this part of the country at night, one is always very vigilant. And when you're tired and you're vigilant and you're prone to sort of see things and maybe exaggerate some of the creatures. Who knows? What I'm doing now is a drawing, because I was sort of inspired by this idea, of a wolf man, of a werewolf, but also the dog man, which is a creature that's said to be seen around Michigan. And I'm going to do an episode on the dog man of Michigan soon, I think. But I thought, what is this sort of tradition of the canine head mixed with the humanoid form? And it really goes back to this creature here that I'm drawing, which is the kynocephalus. The kynocephalus appears in ancient Greek literature and history and natural history, like Herodotus in the Greek, and Pliny the Elder in the Roman natural history. And it's the idea that there's a humanoid, a man or a woman that has a dog's head. They were thought to live somewhere in northern Africa or possibly India, and they were thought to be evil and trouble. Don't sort of have anything to do with them, basically. Except there is this wonderful exception, which is the tradition in the Orthodox Christian tradition of Saint Christopher the Kynocephalus. And that story is that Saint Christopher was not the sort of Roman saint who helps Jesus over the river and becomes the saint of travel, but is rather one of the Kynocephalus, and is visited by the Holy Spirit and gets the power of human speech. And at that point, Christopher starts to preach the gospel and the good news, and the Romans arrest him and put him in jail and try to kill him, but he's unkillable. Eventually, the Romans figure out, well, let's just kill other Christians. And Christopher says no and lets the Romans cut his head off. So this is sort of a story of St. Christopher that's not known so much in the West, but I thought it was a wonderful example of the kind of mix of the canine creature and the humanoid. All right, that's a quick little tour of the Bray Road beast and some of its earliest sort of progenitor creatures. namely the kynocephali. And if you like this kind of thing, please hit the subscribe button and come back for more content. All right, thanks a lot.